In this video, we'll cover how some agents in Valorant can potentially be used in more ways than one, and how their identity can exceed what their role designation is. This will be a guide on a more accurate Valorant roles guide. Valorant is a game that revolves around change and adaptation. All elements of the game are subject to change, including on how and why agents are played in the game. What's going on, ProGuides family? It's your host, Sergeant Frost, and today we're going to try to make a more accurate guide on what role each agent fills for a team. This video is chock full of crucial information about your favorite agents, so don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get right into the video. The agent classes and in-game roles are quickly becoming a hot-button topic as the players within the community challenge the definition of what is a true team comp in-game. In-game classes used to be a distinguishing factor that separated agents based on ability set, playstyle, healing factors, vision blocking potential, and general map placement for certain agents depending on if they were on defense or offense. In the most recent two past episodes, the line between classes is being blurred as many players use agents with overloaded kits in a multitude of different ways. For instance, some controllers have ability sets that give them vision blocking and multiple options for CC, which allows them to cross the line of being a controller on offense and a sentinel on defense. And some agents have the ability to flex as a duelist while still having the supportive utility to initiate. But just as a heads up, just because some agents don't have a second role or flexible role in the meta does not mean that they aren't viable. Flexibility is a good thing to have, but as we have seen already, it's not the name of the game judging by how bad Phoenix is currently in the game. So as we go along, try to focus more on what the agent can accomplish, rather than just looking at whether they can flex different roles. So let's begin with JETT. JETT as an agent does not really have another role she can flex into while in-game. Her playstyle heavily revolves around what duelists are known for, which is breaking and entering into sites, being fast and mobile, and fragging out for her team. Her kit does not create any other opportunities for her outside of her entry fragging role. Phoenix cannot play a flex role outside of being an entry fragging duelist. The main problem with Phoenix's kit is that it only helps himself and doesn't offer much benefit to a team at large. Because of this, not only is he a duelist, but his playstyle confines him to being a selfish duelist because his abilities only give him the room to play off of his own flashes or use his wall and molly to heal himself. Phoenix is a true duelist through and through, which doesn't leave room for any other style of play. While YORU is a duelist, he does have potential to initiate for his team. Don't get the idea twisted. YORU's kit is mainly meant for being used for entry fragging and using his mobility tools to get around his enemies and outplay them. However, YORU does have a couple of tools that can help initiate for his team. That being his decoy, which can run in and be used as a diversion for your team to follow up on, and if it flashes an enemy, they will be blind for a long time. And YORU has very pliable flashes that can be thrown a far distance and bounced off surfaces to help his teammates out by blinding his enemies. YORU does have dual role potential. It just comes down to how you use his abilities in any situation rather than just his playstyle specifically. But YORU as a whole has a whole ton of intricacies to his kit, which is why he's hard to pick up and why he's hard to play really well. So if you're looking for someone to guide you through the ropes of YORU or any other agent to just build up fundamentals as a player, make sure to visit us at ProGuides.com, where our Immortal and Radiant level coaches are more than happy to take you to the next level. The link is in the description if you're interested, and let's keep going. Considering the job Neon has to take up to support the team, her kit does not allow her to flex into another role. And in her case, it's due to the fact that her abilities lock her onto having a streamlined style of play unique to her, which means she's meant to be a hard entry fragger. She creates space and her wall is nice for vision blocking to help teammates run in, but she doesn't do much once she's entered a site. Neon's speed is what makes her a true entry fragger since she can use her tools combined with her speed to overwhelm her enemies. Since she is mainly playing for herself when she's using these abilities, she can't offer much to the team, which makes her mainly just an entry fragging duelist. When you take a look at RAZE on the surface, she appears to be just another basic entry fragger in the duelist class. But if you take a deeper look at how you can use her abilities, she can be flexed into alternate roles. For instance, on defense, RAZE can fill a pseudo sentinel role depending on how she uses her abilities. Her kit has a lot of AoE damage, so she can nuke areas of the map to get kills or just clear enemies out. Her team value on defense can be similar to a sentinel. When she dumps her abilities on defense, she can frag enemies and stave off pushes. Her nade and her ultimate are the best deterrents when she's on defense. She can mainly be used like a duelist because her satchel movements help her entry frag and her boombot can scout out for the enemy team. But when used properly, her damage abilities can be used reactively on defense to stave off pushes better than some traditional sentinels can. So at the end of the day, yes, she can be played in a flex role, but not due to having an alternate playstyle, but more because she can use her utility in different ways to help out the team. Like most of the other duelists, REYNA's kit doesn't help out her team as much outside of her flashes. And to double down on her kit promoting her duelist-only playstyle, she needs to be a bit selfish in order to get more frags so that she can use her main abilities. Her utility only helps her outside of her flash. She does need to play selfish in order to get her frags to snowball. REYNA's current kit shoehorns her into a duelist role with no potential to flex out of the role. Heading into the initiators, let's start with the newest addition, Fade. Fade does have the potential to flex as a Sentinel in game, and her kit supports this flex playstyle well. When she's attacking, she is mainly an info gathering initiator. She can use her Prowler and her eye to spot enemies and debuff them, which makes them easier to frag once the team runs onto site. On defense, Fade can act as a potential Sentinel because all of her abilities have some form of CC on top of multiple effects that can be applied to enemies. Her Snare, Prowler, and Ultimate are great tools to not only deter rushes, but they make retakes easier because they impair with decays and nearsightedness. Fade's utility is flexible enough to allow her to play an alternate playstyle that focuses more on defensive ability usage, which gives her options to play passively. In reality, SOVA's main job is to stand back behind a stack and shoot his abilities onto site to help out his team, which means his main job is info gathering from a safe spot from a distance, and his damage abilities require him to stay back and line them up away from his team. He doesn't really have any other function outside of intel and potentially using arrows and an ultimate to stop a push. Outside of those two circumstances, SOVA doesn't have the capabilities or tools to flex out of an info gathering initiating role. KO is one of the most flexible agents in Valorant currently, and not only can he play two different roles for a team, but he can do both of them well and adjust his playstyle mid-round, all depending on how he throws his abilities. KO is one of the most flexible agents in the game due to how his kit functions. A KO that wants to focus on initiating can stand behind his team and throw a knife into sight to take the defenses offline. And then he can proceed to throw his flashes and molly into the bomb site to support his team from the back line as he plays a more conservative role on offense. A KO that wants to play like an aggressive duelist can be at the front of his team's stack, and he can activate his ultimate to take enemy abilities away in a mass radius. And he can even chuck in nades to clear out bomb site corners and then short throw pop flash enemies nearby and run in like an aggressive duelist. He can pull off this playstyle because his ultimate gives him a second chance at life if he gets picked back up, so he doesn't lose anything by being a duelist point man for his team. KO can pull off more than one role by changing his playstyle in game, and that's mostly by how he throws in his abilities to either help his team out or help himself when trying to entry frag around the map. Breach is a weird agent for this conversation because he doesn't really have a secondary role potential, but some players that use him think that he does. What I mean by that is Breach is meant to be an initiator that uses his abilities in the back so his team can run in front of him. Some lesser experienced players think that you can run around and quick flash surfaces and act as an entry frag. But in actuality, Breach's abilities have long pullout times, which makes his playstyle not viable even though people try to use it like this. In reality, he could be an entry fragger if he could flash quicker, but that's not possible currently, so at the moment he can't flex out of the initiator role. SKYE is in the same situation as KO. Her kit is flexible and can be used aggressively like a duelist, but it can be toned back to a conservative manner and act like an initiator. After her nerfs in episode 3 of last year, her playstyle now is more of a supportive initiator who throws in her flashes first into the back of a site to blind enemies, and her team runs in front of her utility to gain entry into the site. While she has the ability to duel pretty well, since she has the tools to function as a one-man army that can win fights on her own, her main playstyle of being an initiator that starts fights for the team instead of taking them on her own is mostly how she is played in the current meta. Brim is in a tough spot because on the surface he's seen as a simple, straightforward controller that drops down smokes for his team and puts his abilities down where his teammates tell him to. But when you look deeper at his ability usage, he does have the potential to flex his role and initiate for the team. He can be inclined to be an initiator because his kit is one of the only one out of the controllers that can impact the speed of an execute through buffs. He also has the potential to forcibly section off the map by strategically placing his ultimate to help out his team. At the end of the day, he is a controller through and through, but his ability usage does give him the potential to initiate for his team. Viper is one of the agents in Valorant that many consider to be a hybrid agent where they can flex into and play two different roles distinctly well. In Viper's case, she has quite a few maps where she can be very strong on, but for different reasons. So let's talk about first and foremost Viper's main playstyle, which is being a vision blocking controller, which is her main priority for maps like Icebox and Breeze where she can be played as a solo controller. It's her responsibility to put down her wall to let her team execute into a bomb site with more ease, and her capabilities as a controller are very strong on these maps too. And of course, her defense side setups play very much like a Sentinel's, with site setups that are designed to stall, trap, and punish enemies that are trying to disrespect her utility. As you guys can probably guess, Viper flexes as a Sentinel very well, but some people don't understand just how well she flexes as a Sentinel. So let's talk about maps where she's not the solo controller, like Split and Bind. On these maps, Viper actually doubles down on her Sentinel capabilities not just on the defender side, but on the attack side as well as a Sentinel lurk. Her walls would be used to deny information on certain parts of the map like A-short and facilitate lurks or burn enemy utility. She shuts down an area of the map and prevents the defenders from contesting it without significant risks, and forces the enemy team to respect her setup. In these positions, she doesn't function as a traditional controller since her wall isn't for site executes, but it still impacts the map heavily by drawing tons of pressure to her setups. Like Viper, ASTRA for a very long time was known to be a hybrid agent. Her main focus is vision blocking and smoking the map for her team. Her secondary flex role is being a sentinel who can use her stun and sucks at the entry points of bomb sites in an attempt to deny the site from attackers. ASTRA doesn't have any damaging abilities like Viper, so her sentinel job is more of taking time off the clock and buying time for her team, and using her CC to catch out enemies so that you can set your team up for free frags. While OMEN is mostly known for being a main smoke bot, he does have the potential to flex his role and playstyle similar to being a duelist. You can tailor his playstyle to be more mobile by using his mobility tools and Shadow Step in his ultimate to move around the map quicker and outplay your enemies. He also has a blind that can be used in a pinch to blind multiple enemies at once, which does give himself utility that he himself can play off of. While he is mainly known for being a controller, if you know how to use his blind and mobility moves well, you can craft his playstyle to be more like a duelist. Chamber is an agent that is known to be a hybrid agent similar to Viper and Astra, as he can play a playstyle in the duelist role while flexing his kit with his sentinel-like sight denial abilities. His trips allow him to have map and zone control, and his overpowered AWP allows him to stop pushes, which allows him to function as a sentinel. Another reason he functions well as a duelist is because of his mobility with his TP. Chamber has the luxury of playing aggressively on the map because he is an instant reposition tool that allows him to get a kill and then get out instantly. This risky playstyle is common among career duelist players who abuse this mechanic on Chamber for their own personal advantage. Combine this with the fact that his kit can provide him with 2 alternate guns and he can have a duelist playstyle with high efficiency. KILLJOY unfortunately cannot be flexed into a secondary role, and unlike most agents, it's mainly because the game's meta over a long period of time has shoehorned her into only one style of play in order to be effective. Her entire kit revolves around site denial, which means she needs to set up and prep a site and then remain stationary to be a site anchor in order to do her job. This limits her potential to have alternate playstyles. On offense, she mainly uses her abilities as flank watch, and when the bomb goes down, she can set them up for site defense. She's a true sentinel through and through. Sage is in a similar situation to KILLJOY, where over time the game has forced her into a one-dimensional playstyle which only leaves her with one role within a team comp with no room for a secondary role. Sage's main playstyle is playing conservatively behind her team and healing and reviving them. She can't afford to have any other playstyles because she is only useful if she's alive for as long as possible so she can heal multiple times around. Her abilities are better used for site denial and they don't work well when used aggressively, so she can't be flexed into another role for her team. CYPHER these days doesn't do much outside of info gathering and catching people in his trips. Similarly to Sage, he needs to stay alive for as long as possible so he can use his abilities multiple times throughout the entire round. He can't afford to flex into another playstyle since his main round objective should be staying alive, so unfortunately he doesn't have a flex role potential outside of being a straight up sentinel. And with that being said, that's our actual agent role guide for 2022. Let us know whether you agree or disagree in the comment section, and let us know if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe too. This has been your host Sergeant Frost, and I'll see you all again in the next one.